Hello, everyone, and welcome to the P&G Alumni Coaching Webinar. I'm Ileana Rojas, your host today, and I'm very excited and honored to be joined by three of our 13 coaches that support this program to talk about feeling overwhelmed, which is something that I just feel like it's it's nonstop, and how can we manage these feelings? But before we start, let me tell you a little bit about the P&G Alumni Coaching Program. We provide we are a trusted and accomplished group of globally experienced former P&G women leaders who provide certified coaching services to P&G alumni. And we do this as part of a bigger mission of the P&G Alumni Network, which is a nonprofit founded by former P&G alumni to former P&G employees to share ideas, talents, and resources with each other, our communities, and our philanthropy efforts. Now, today, I'm excited to welcome some of my fellow coaches to join me to talk about how to manage overwhelm, an experience that I believe each of us have had some time this past year in some way and is impacting both our performance and also our well being. Now, before we move in, let me introduce you to my fellow colleagues. And I would like to start with welcoming Heidi Piper. Heidi lived and worked in Europe nearly all of her adult life. She's mother of two and now lives in Boulder, Colorado. She's an experienced global innovation leadership executive, now trauma informed coach and consultant entrepreneur. She co created and runs workshops to train people to hold space so they can support the emotional well being of others. She's the author of the teaching memoir book, Choose Love: How to Move Through Heartache with Grace and Rise Like a Phoenix. Haiti, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Esther Gettin. Geta, sorry, Esther is a certified coach from the Coactive Training Institute with over 10 years of experience, and she's also a leadership development specialist. She has 20 years career as a global marketing executive at different firms like Colgate, Clairol, P&G, and Novartis, and she's lived in Germany, in the US, and in Switzerland, and currently resides in Geneva. She's a German national naturalized Swiss, and speaks four languages. Thank you, Esther, for being with us today.
Thank you.
And another great colleague and coach that's here with us today, Florence Marie Guinea. Florence is a German French binational who coaches leaders in creating effective strategies, channeling their energy towards their desired outcomes, and enjoy one's life that we have here on earth. She is also the author of the book Move On Courageously, discussing courage in life and in leadership. And she invites her audiences to overcome fear, to follow their heart, their purpose, and their values. Florence, thank you so much for being here with us today. And I am your host, Ileana Rojas. And as a coach, I am passionate about helping underrepresented leaders and women of color find their voice, elevate their presence, and reconnect with their purpose to create meaningful impact. And I'm just so thrilled and excited to hear what everybody has to say about this incredible topic. Well, actually, the topic is not incredible, but I think it's incredible that we're talking about it because it's not something that we usually talk about. So, ladies, welcome to this virtual space. And I would love to start with just setting the framework of this conversation. You know, I consistently see through my clients and just my own experiences through this year this rising demands of feeling overwhelmed and people just feeling like they can't deal with things anymore. There's competing priorities, there's constant change, there's this constant demand to deliver fast results, to try to handle the competing priorities from work and then from life. And it just feels like there's a never ending story that we hearken break and breathe from. So, uh, I personally lived through it, and I see it more and more through the different clients that I coach. And I would love to start hearing from you, from your own experiences personally, and then as a coach. First, what is really overwhelm, and what are some areas of consideration when managing these feelings? And Florence, I would love to start with you.
I suggest that we look first of all at what are feelings. Feelings are signaling us what is going on. They are telling us essential truths about ourselves. If I understand that, I can start to navigate that system of feelings and of course the feeling of overwhelm. So what I assume is that feelings are a signal for what is good for us and what is bad for us. So which means our needs fulfilled, and then we have happy feelings, or our feelings are bad, and which means our needs are hurt, they are not fulfilled. So if we constantly feel in an anxiety of not delivering, of not performing, of not fitting the standards and expectations of others, there is a need of us that is hurt. And what can you do? My idea would be to first of all pause, pause for a moment and consider, hey, what is going on? Because this feeling of overwhelm doesn't make you better in your performance, in your contribution, in your impact. And that's what we all want a lot in our lives, is to create that impact. So pause for a moment and see what needs are fulfilled and not fulfilled. And most importantly, never, ever, if possible, censor your needs. Don't. What you need is the truth about yourself. How you strategize and navigate through your needs, that's another story. I don't know. What are the others thinking?
Thank you. Heidi, how about you?
Uh, I think that overwhelm is very common. I certainly experience it myself, and a lot of us have a lot going on. Just working these days can create overwhelm. And if on top of that, you have other responsibilities, like you're a working parent, or you're taking care of your aging parents, or you have other responsibilities outside of work, it can really become a lot. The demand is greater than the capacity to deliver against what everybody's asking you to do. And I fully agree with what Florence said. It is a flag when you have these feelings that something is important to you, in you, that needs your attention. And so I fully agree with what she said. The best response is to pause and to reflect and try to understand what you need that you're not giving yourself in that moment, or the situation is not allowing you to have, so you can attend to it.
Thank you, Heidi. How about you, Esther?
Yeah, I also fully agree with Florence and Heidi. I think our world is getting more and more complex. I mean, you probably have all heard about this VUCA term, and I don't see anytime soon that there's going to be a decomplexity campaign going on. So we are constantly confronted with it, and I think the pandemic has added to that load. On the other hand, I also want to say that, thank goodness we are human beings and we have feelings. I mean, that sets us apart. Now, talking about AI is a whole different topic. And, it's just, as you said, Florence, there's some feelings that are more pleasant than others. And so, there's also a big debate around, I think in neuroscience, they're trying to identify where do feelings come from, what causes them. I don't have the answer to that. I witnessed that, I observed that debate with high interest. But I think also that we have a tendency to judge feelings. Like, this is a good feeling to have, and this might be not a good feeling to have. So, because it's not comfortable. So if a feeling isn't comfortable, then does it mean we would like not to do it, have it at all, and cherry pick the good feeling? I'm not sure that this is the right way forward, actually.
Thank you. And I like, I'm going to summarize what all of you have said because I think you've touched on really important points. This VUCA thought about, VUCA being volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and it is something that we're not going to see anything change anytime soon. It is the world that we're living in, and it's how to be able to navigate that space. But that in itself is causing all of these feelings of overwhelm. And like many of you have mentioned, just it becomes a red flag when we have these anxiety, constantly feeling that we're not performing, that we're not fitting, stressors, and recognize that that is a red flag, that something is happening, so that we can then take a pause, and be able to analyze and become self-aware. However, it feels like we don't have time to pause because the world is changing so fast. So, and Florence, you mentioned something really important about not suppressing these feelings and ignoring them, because sometimes I feel like there's a belief that everybody's life is perfect, mine is not, but because everybody's life seems perfect through social media and other means, then I don't have the I don't give myself permission to then pause, to then acknowledge these feelings, and we keep suppressing them. So then my next question, and I would love to hear from you, Heidi, first. Is it a good idea to suppress our feelings and have this beautiful social media life? Not like, tell us a little bit more.
So absolutely not. We should not suppress our feelings. It is instinctive to do so when they're negative, as Esther pointed out, because it doesn't feel good. And we tend to naturally move away and want to go away what doesn't make us feel good. But when we suppress our feelings, the emotions, that energy from the emotion, some people say emotion is energy in motion, that gets stored in our bodies and we carry them around. Sometimes if we don't resolve them, we can carry around these emotions for the rest of our lives, and they impact our relationships to others, to ourselves, and can seriously impact our long-term health. When we have these feelings, there is something that we can do, which is helpful. And it looks like this. So first, we should acknowledge to ourselves our feelings. And you can actually say in your head, or say out loud if you like, I feel X, fill in the blank. I feel sad, angry, overwhelmed, frustrated. And when we do this, then we can sit with it and just allow ourselves to feel it. And as scary as that is, because it feels like it's going to last forever and be super painful, usually if it's a sort of regular daily life emotion, it will pass in less than 2 minutes. And once we allow ourselves to feel it, then that emotion dissolves and it is released and it doesn't get stored, and we don't carry around that feeling anymore. That is really the healthiest way to do it. It seems counterintuitive, but instead of pushing it away, running away, we need to lean into it, allow ourselves to feel it, name it, sit with it.
Thank you. Thank you for those great tips. Florence, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, totally agree with Heidi. The one thing is sometimes it lasts longer, and then the flag becomes a blanket that wraps you in very negative feelings. And that's because some of us and many of us are actually have trained the brain into a very, very negative circuit of thoughts, which usually end with, I'm not worth it, which is not a good idea because we are all worth it. So if you sense that there is a blanket and not a flag, what you can do is what I call sensing. So you either follow your breath, you wiggle your toes, and you pay attention which toes you can wiggle, if you can wiggle different toes at a time, which is an interesting task for all of you. And that helps your brain to switch out of that blanket, to pull it off. Because if you are, I call it sometimes really like a balloon of bad thoughts, where you are in a very, very negative space, that is not helpful. And to come back to your power, to your self-esteem, to your self-acceptance, this sensing is a very, very effective tool.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. These are great, great tips. I'm writing them all down. And we hear on the one hand, we hear this terminology of overwhelm constantly. It's our way of expressing this feeling, but we also are seeing and also hearing people express that they have a lot of stress, and that they're stressed out. Is there a correlation and a relationship between the stress that we're feeling and the feelings of overwhelming? If you can tell us a little bit more, Esther, I would love to start with you.
Sure. So there's certainly a relationship. So we, as Florence and Heidi were saying before, we all have feelings of overwhelm at times. Now it's the flag, or it's getting worrisome or important to pay attention to when it becomes chronic, when it's really massive and hard to manage. And chronic stress is actually a big contributor to this feeling of overwhelm. And then it becomes almost like a self-feeding downward spiral, right? Because when you're feeling overwhelmed, you're also very much stressed, typically, because you don't want other people to notice. Let's say at work, you have to be performance. So by showing your vulnerability, you might be worried that this leads to bad feedback, that leads to bad performance evaluations, etc. You also worry about not being able to take care of the people that you would like to take care. So it becomes a negative spiral. So there's definitely a strong correlation. And it's really important to recognize when everyday life, like work, family, and especially also your health, is really overwhelming. And that's when, at the very latest, you need to take some action. We talk about that.
Thank you. Heidi, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I agree with what Esther said, and related to what Florence said, when it can become a blanket, I think we each have our own personal capacity to deal with stress and overwhelm. And when we get outside what some people call the window of tolerance for that stress, we react to this overwhelm. And this can manifest in what you might have heard called fight, flight, or freeze, or collapse behaviors. And this makes it nearly impossible to respond effectively in the moment to what's happening around us. And there are strategies, as Florence mentioned and Esther hinted at, that we can use to help cope with this state when we sense it's coming on, and avoid what I'd call falling over the edge of the effectively coping in the moment cliff.
And I want to touch into those different like tactics. You've all already shared a couple of them, and I want to tap into more. But I have one more question that, as I was hearing, it came to me, and because you mentioned, Esther, I think it was you, about the showing of vulnerability, and how that's adding stress. What about perfectionism? And how does anybody have any thoughts? I've heard now a couple of people mention that they're recovering perfectionists, but that is in a way also influencing these feelings of stress and the feelings of overwhelm. So on the one side, we have set ourselves a level of perfectionism that we feel is expected from us, but on the other side, we have this double standard that we don't request that same, or we don't expect that same level of perfectionism from others, and all of that sort of culminates into these feelings of stress and overwhelm. So I just wanted to, because I know that it's becoming also a trending topic out there. Any thoughts on perfectionism?
Yeah, so perfectionism is the idea that you must avoid mistakes at all costs, so others have a high esteem of you. So, and if you hear it, it's just cute, because we are all fallible. We all make mistakes. We are human. And the idea of I'm able to have to make no mistakes is, if I say it, I think most people will say, yeah, that's a little bit absurd. And then I know that a lot of say, yeah, but I have to be able to make no mistakes. And being able to embrace mistakes doesn't make that I don't care. That means it cares, and that I know I might not succeed all the time. And the world will keep turning, people will still love me, and bosses will have continuously high respect because I care, and because I'm capable of doing a lot of things and not everything perfect. So that's one thing. The second is that I think with social media, there are, again, honestly, inhuman standards on so many things, and we all take them. As a mother, as a chef, as a marketing manager, as a sports person, as a friend, as everything. And these are standards, again, that you can only end up in overwhelm. So partly, one idea might be to write down for yourself, where do you have all these expectations and who humanly can deliver? So, and then it's often married with an imposter syndrome, and then the absurdity circles, because then we think, once I'm found out, then everything will collapse. In some way it's right, because we have an imposter syndrome if we think we don't make mistakes, because we all make mistakes. So I would want to invite to embrace our fallibility, and to know that we are vulnerable, and to find people who understand that, appreciate that, and who help us having a wonderful life.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I think you touch on very important points in terms of all of these either limiting beliefs or expectations that are in our mind that we create, all of these mixed thoughts, or it almost feels like a waterfall of thoughts that happen when we're in when we're in this moment of overwhelm, we're in this moment of high stress. How do we then manage? I would love to hear from each of you then. How do we are able to manage all of these conflicting thoughts, and things that we are going through? And I would love to start with you, Heidi.
Well, there are many tools, and it's individual what works for you. And my encouragement would be to start trying some of these things and see what works best for you. One of the most effective tools that we can start with is the breath, and I think Florence touched on this. When you start to feel it, usually we get anxiety and overwhelm because we're thinking about the past, or we're worried about the future. And right here, right now, in the present moment, typically you're not in threat of dying, which is often what the nervous system is triggering when you have this anxiety and overwhelm. And so if you start breathing, and one really nice exercise is to breathe in for the count of 4, let's say, and breathe out for the count of 8. So double the amount of time you breathe out. That tells your nervous system that you are safe. If you think about it, it makes sense, because when you're anxious, you're breathing short and shallow. So you're purposefully breathing deep and long. And that will also help bring you in the present moment, where everything is actually okay right this instant. And this is because the body is in the present. And so when you're breathing, you're in your body, you're aware of your body, so you're in the present moment. So that is really one of my favorite go-to tools. You can use it anywhere. You can be in a meeting, you can be talking to someone, nobody will know, and you are calming yourself down instantly. Also, Florence, I think, touched on how important the mind is, and I think Esther mentioned it as well. Our minds are so incredibly powerful. And so the more that we can bring our awareness to what we're actually thinking as we are feeling these emotions, then we can start to without awareness, challenge ourselves. Like maybe we're thinking, oh, nobody will, love me, or nobody, my boss will fire me, or whatever. And then you can stop and say, oh, is that really, really true? And once you challenge yourself, you can think, well, maybe not. Or think of instances when what you're worried about coming true did not come true. And in the end, 90+% of what we worry about never comes true. So that's a lot of lost energy. when we're running around thinking all these things are going to come true that won't.
Thank you. Thank you. Florence.
Yeah, the idea of channeling energy comes to my mind. Do I dedicate my energy, because energy is not endless. Yeah, the energy is always the same. Energy, law of energy. The question is, where do I channel it towards? And if there is this moment of, oh my God, I don't know, and what has been or what will be, I can channel my energy towards questions of what is the immediate solution. The other one is, what is my learning right here, right now? I can channel energy to self-love and say, hey, that was really bad, and I still love myself for being here. So there's a lot of, it's really the where do I put my mind towards, and where do I allow my energy to be focused on, and that gives you a lot of power, a lot of power.
Thank you. That power of choice, in a way, which is very important. Esther, how about you?
Yeah, I really like the question. I think what is important, or another way of, in addition to what Heidi and Florence said, to look at it is to start getting curious, like what's happening, where does this come from, what's actually causing this feeling of overwhelm. Is it a one-time event? Is it something that we can then get rid of or address, or is it a general thing? Like during the pandemic, like I said earlier, everybody started to feel overwhelmed. Or is it also maybe an indicator for poor mental health? What I love that lately everybody's starting to talk about, overwhelm, burnout. I think the topic of mental health has become more prevalent and more talked about. So it's perhaps also more possible and allowable to be vulnerable, like you said, Florence, earlier. So it's okay. Nobody is perfect. We've gotten used to having cats walking on our keyboards when we're having video conferences, something that was unheard of before. Everybody had to be perfect. So we are admitting to be human. So I think that one way of addressing is to see, okay, what's happening right now? Where does this feeling of overwhelm come from? And then also start giving yourself some slack and start practicing self-compassion. It is normal to feel overwhelmed. Everybody is feeling overwhelmed. So it's not something to blame yourself for, or just be with it and allow it. And then breathe. I like that too. And also ask for help. If you think this is something that you can't address or deal with on your own, don't try to manage it or to carry it on your own. There are people around you, your friends, your family, your work, your co-workers, your colleagues. So people are there to help you talk about it, address it, and find ways to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important. If anybody out there is struggling with these feelings of overwhelm, with high stress, any other emotion of the sort, and really needs somebody to talk to, it is essential to reach out to an expert, a mental health professional. Your well being matters, and there are people who care about you and will be willing to help. So don't stay with it. That is very important. Thank you for mentioning that. I feel like this is a topic that could give us hours and hours, but we're coming to the end of our webinar here today. Any final words or nuggets of wisdom that our audience can take away? Esther, we'll start with you.
Well, I think as I just said, ask for help. So it's overwhelm is everywhere. It's not going to go away anytime soon. It's not something which we can just ignore. So I think it's best to proactively address it, and maybe working with a coach can be a way to move forward.
Thank you, Florence.
Yeah, and working with a coach can allow you to look perhaps a little bit deeper on what is the source of what is going on. Yeah, so not only the tips and tricks to deal in the actual situation, but what shifts can I allow myself in my life, in my choices, in my mindset, so that I'm more in balance and I'm more powerful to have the life I want.
Thank you. How about you, Heidi?
I definitely agree that it's important to find someone that you can talk to. Is sometimes just saying what you're feeling brings some important relief. And I wanted to offer an acronym I really love around perfectionism and feeling like we can't make mistakes. And that is the word FAIL, FAIL. Reframe that to mean first attempt in learning. And so we're all on a journey of learning how to do things better and more effectively, and we'll learn there fastest. I'm an innovator by trade, and this is the way that we learn fastest. Is we just try things and see what works, and we forgive ourselves and know that we're going to be okay if it doesn't work out. And I do believe that coaches, as everybody's saying, are very important allies in supporting identifying the source of overwhelm and then identifying and executing strategies to manage it. And so we're here to speak with anybody who's interested and would really love to support anybody who thinks it would be helpful.
Thank you. And I love the acronym. It's just shifting and changing our beliefs, right, of what certain things mean, and changing them. That can be so powerful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Florence, for sharing, for joining me in this powerful conversation that I hope has left the audience with some great tips, some great strategies to be able to manage this. Know that you're not on your own. Feel free to reach out at any point in time, because we'll be more than happy to support you during these difficult times, right? And if you have any questions on this and any other relevant topics, you can sign up for your free consultation at coaching.pgalums.com, where us and all of our other peers and incredible coaches will be able to support you. This is Ileana Rojas, your host today for this P&G Alumni Coaching webinar. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever in the world you are. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.